Everyone, welcome teachers or whatever you do. Thank you for joining us today, our webinar about bringing drones into your classroom and sharing the excitement of flying robots with your students and igniting love of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and especially girls. We want to hook girls into this STEM thing. We need more girls. We're going to be sharing some drone stories and answering questions that you may have. But first, some introductions. My name is Wendy Erikson, and I am with the Women and Drones organization, which was created a few years ago because of the very small number of women who are working in the drone industry or drone hobbyists. We decided that we needed our own little community, which we formed with Women in Drones, an online community. And we wanted to grow the size of our community and pretty quickly realized that we're going to need to reach young girls and to get that community to grow, women in the drone industry and women in all sectors of the tech industry. And luckily there were people working on that in Australia too, right Karen? So we figured that schools seemed to be the perfect place to reach these younger girls and show them the wonders of drones. Of course, that's a little bit easier said than done. And Erin, you're going to speak to that.
Yep.
That it's not super easy to walk in and bring your drone to school and start flying it. But it gets a little bit complicated. And we all know that teachers don't have time for extra red tape in addition to the red tape you'll have to go through every day just to do your job. So luckily we're going to help streamline the process and tell you a little bit more about SheMaps. And that's what brings us to SheMaps, based in Australia. And already they've created an online professional development course that cuts through those complications and helps teachers bring drones into the classroom. And Women in Drones has partnered with SheMaps to bring what they've already done in Australia. We're bringing it to the United States. And that's why we have this webinar today to tell you all a little bit about it. Now, somebody who can speak to this whole subject, the complicated parts as well as what it's like to actually bring it to the classroom is our teacher representative here, Erin Knoetig. She's a high school educator in New Hampshire in the United States, and she's also a drone consultant. And so we'd like you, Erin, to tell us a little bit more about yourself and a little bit about your journey. What brought you to drones in the classroom?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So I'm Erin, and this is my first time ever doing a webinar for drones, so it's totally awesome. A lot of it is just, where do you start? Where do you whatever? So being a high school teacher, especially in New England, around drones have been around, and how do we get them in the classroom? Because they are so beneficial for photography, because originally I'm a photography teacher, so it was how do I get more kids to see the world through a different lens. So from there, it all just started on a whim. My CTE director came in and said, do you want to teach drones? And I was like, sure, where do I sign up? I've been teaching for 15 years. So a lot of it was kind of stale, stagnant. I wanted something new. Technology is where the world is going. So how do we bring that into the classroom with a positive aspect to the kids? So from there, I got a lot of community support. Within 20 minutes, the superintendent was, go get certified. How do we do it? How do we do it? We didn't know how to do it. And that's a lot of it is, where do you start? Where do you pick up the pieces? You have this great idea, but you have to kind of put the cart before the horse. Where do we go? So I got certified. I went and took a weekend class, got my 107 3 months later after studying. And then, okay, I have this certification. Where do I go with it? I want to be able to, give the kids some practical practical, what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you.
Information,
Yes,
knowledge.
I can't
Yes.
speak. Some practical applications for how can we use drones in the future. So from there, I got teamed up with the city. The city then wanted to use drones for emergency management. Where can you take drones? But that's awesome. But again, how do we get them in the classroom? So that's when I, thanks to Googled drone curriculum, and SheMaps came up. Women in Drones came up, and I've been kind of spying on Karen and everybody, Wendy, forever, because they had such awesome resources that was so applicable and easy to use. So that's my little, I'm not trained, nothing, I just picked it up.
So what you're saying is it wasn't an easy process. It wasn't all right there in front of you what you needed to do, but you got through it by doing a lot of research. My story is similar. I'm a journalist by trade. I spent 25 years in the television journalism industry, and coming from the photography side of it too, I saw the images on network television of drones getting amazing footage, and it just clicked for me that as a visual storyteller, wow, drones are going to really change the way visual journalists do their job. So then I started doing the research, and I couldn't find anything in the Midwest. I had to go to Chicago to go to a seminar, and I was there and met up with a room full of 150 people. 5 of them were women and the rest were men. But but it was extremely complicated. There were people there from all sectors of the drone industry. So I had to do that, and then come back to St. Louis and figure out how to learn. Okay, what drone do I buy? Where do I buy a drone? Online? But then how am I going to spend my life on YouTube figuring out how to use it? I joined the local AMA club, Academy of Model Aeronautics, and a bunch of wonderful men, retired men. And no one had a drone, so they couldn't even help me learn to fly. We had a great time. I had a place to fly on the AMA field. But anyway, the point being, it was complicated. But now with this SheMaps and the things that Erin and I have learned, and Karen is bringing to, who you're going to meet in a minute, it's all kind of in a package. I do not have a technical background. That's a big thing that I think is important, that any of you out there need to know, that I did figure out how to fly this drone. I'm learning a lot about robotics in the process, but I didn't know anything I didn't know anything about aviation or aeronautics. Those things come into play if you do want to be a certified FAA, certified by the FAA as a drone pilot, but you don't need to worry about that. But the point being that I did learn what I needed to know. So if I like to say, and my teenage young adult daughters will tell you, if my mom can figure it out, anyone can figure it out. But there is just something about putting the drone in the air that gets attention through a classroom of kids. I don't care what age they are. Seeing a drone fly in the classroom or outside gets their attention, and that's the wonderful thing, the teachable. And Erin, you're the teacher, but just the opportunity, you've got their attention, and now do all the curriculum side of it, teach them more, and all the opportunities and possibilities that drones bring. So, and Erin, you said you were photography, but you did not have a technical background as well, correct?
No, I'm a fine artist by trade. I was a graphic designer before I became a photography teacher. So the most technical I had was flying my daughters throughout my house, but that was all I ever touched of a drone beforehand.
And see, drones do take amazing pictures, but drones also help with, there are so many different, a million things that drones do, like geospatial science, which is Karen Joyce, are you going to jump in and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do? I think that's an important thing to talk about what you do. You're the founder of SheMaps, and you have a PhD in geographical sciences from the University of Queensland, and you are a senior lecturer in remote sensing at James Cook University in Australia. I hope I got all of that right. But you use drones for a whole different part of very different than what taking pictures of for journalism students, I guess. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you use drones for, and we'll get into more about and maybe questions about some the drones. Can you hear us, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wendy, and hi, everyone. I'm Karen, and it's really happy to be here and to chat with you all, and thank you so much for popping in to join us from all over North America by the looks of things. So, I mean, I'm quite similar in a way to Wendy and Erin in that the journey wasn't totally easy for me either, right? So I started flying drones about 5 or 6 years ago now. And when I started, you couldn't just go down to your local department store and buy a drone. There weren't a lot out on the shelves. The drones that were around were incredibly big and bulky and difficult to fly. And I've made a lot of mistakes, a huge amount of mistakes in my journey for using drones to create maps. So historically, I used satellite images like what you might see on Google Earth to map and monitor the environment around us and see how things change over time. And I saw probably about 20 years ago, I imagined having something of my own that I could fly, but it's only more recently and also through some time in the military that I realized that drones could actually do what it is that I want to do. And so when I started on the journey, it was really hard. I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of money on equipment that probably wasn't the best choice at the time, and really fumbled around quite a lot. And one of the reasons that SheMaps exists for helping teachers is because I don't want you to waste the amount of time that I spent. And I work with a lot of academics and of course my students as well to get them over some of that initial learning curve that can be quite challenging in terms of, you know, where do I start? What drone do I buy? What's my application? What is it that I want to do with the drone? What do I want to get out of it? What's my budget? What are the health and safety requirements? All these different aspects that come together to help you figure out what it is that you want to do. That I didn't have anyone around at the time to guide me through, so I fumbled my way and made it up myself. And so now what I've really tried to do is to pull it all together and make it so that, you know, these things are really quite simple, and it is all there and curated for you. So it's not that you have to go to 50 different sites to get a bit of information here, there and everywhere. It is curated within our SheMaps system, and we're developing the alumni as well of people who work on our programs, and getting together chat groups as well, so teachers can continue to talk to each other as they work through the journey and as technology changes, how they go along with that as well.
Great. So I have my, this is my little Tello drone here. You like these Tellos, Karen? Is that what you're...
Yeah, so we fly with a couple of different things when we start teaching students how to fly. So I'm a really big fan of using the smallest and cheapest drone that you can do to achieve the learning objective that you have. So there's no point in buying something that's this big if you can get away with something that's this big. So the smaller it is, the safer it's going to be generally. And of course, if something happens to it, then it's also cheaper to replace as well. So the Tello is a really, really good option. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, on the market at the moment in a really small price range for something that is very simple to fly. And I think it's important that when you're working with students that you do start with something that is easy to fly and maneuver, so you can get the confidence in flight before you're then able to build in the application. So for me, it's a lot about geospatial and mapping. And Erin, I imagine or the stuff that she does with her students is a lot more about the photography for cinematic or pretty picture type purposes as well. And that way you can focus on the application without worrying about are the students going to be safe with the drone. And the Tello is wonderful for that.
Yeah. And then I have some bigger drones as well. It's so, like you said, Karen, it's great to start out small, and then you get hooked.
Yes.
Yes.
I have to attest to that, because so many of them, well, and I'm going to be honest, the first time I flew my drone, I hit my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to fail before you can fly. Like, there's those the failure learning,
Right.
It happens. And the kids need to know it's okay. Like, that's why if you start with a small drone, if it bounces off the wall, it's fine, instead of $300 falling on the floor. Like, you have to. And a lot of it is just, like we're saying, confidence. That's huge with my kids, confidence.
Help me tell some of the teachers some of the other applications that do you discuss with your students about, besides the photography and the mapping, like Karen mentioned. What are your students seem to be most interested in and are fascinated by the fact that drones are used?
Right. So one of the activities that I do with my kids is they have to actually research how drones are used in the environment, how they use them for transporting goods. I mean, it's huge now. Amazon is going to send things to your door. We go through so many practical different applications, because what I'm trying to teach the kids is to see it's not like a social studies or a math class where they feel that when they leave the door, they never are going to use what they learned. So that's the side of our technology education side, is giving them the practical applications. So we do a lot of looking at mapping. We do the emergency management end of it. I'm getting FEMA certified so that what I can teach the kids is, in the case of an emergency, heaven forbid, in my school, I can get a drone in the air and see what is going on. They want to have kind of a headquarters in my room, so during evacuations, we can see where things are going wrong. They want to use them for practical uses for the city, for construction, for, oh my gosh,
Right.
The list is seriously endless. Like, I can't just pick one thing to say, oh, this is what they're interested in. They're really interested in whatever is going to sadly put money in their pockets.
Right. And you teach high school kids. I know hopefully there are some teachers here who teach the younger students as well, because I think getting some of these girls especially interested in the technology earlier on is a great thing, before they can be influenced by, maybe what their girlfriend.
Right. And I can tell you, my daughter is 11. And every time she and her friends come over, they always are like, Mrs. K, can we fly? Can we fly? Can we fly? And my son is 6, and I let him fly. Like, you have to start young, and it's okay. Like, it's good.
That's right. And in addition to the applications of using the drones, there's also the other side of the other part of the coding and learning how the robots work and how they fly and how you can control them to do what you want. So that brings in that whole side as well. And I know a lot of teachers are very interested in that part of it as well. Is this a good time? Do we want to start answering some questions? Do you out there have questions for any one of us, or we can jump in to who can provide the best answer? I'm going to have to put on some glasses so that I can actually.
Yeah, so Wendy, there's been a couple that I've been keeping on top of, also in the chat window. So there's a question from Julie asking, for you, Erin, are you teaching coding via Swift or anything like that, or are you're flying more than coding? What are you up to there?
I'm going to be honest with you. At first, I I didn't know what I was going to be teaching them. And then after I did the online PD with Karen and the coding, I literally went and I just wrote a $4,200 grant to get the Tello EDUs so that I can do coding with the kids. Because we're trying, because we're trying to get a vertical alignment between what the kids learn in the middle school to what we're teaching them in the high school. So I have never coded, so yay, more I get to learn. So I'm totally excited about it. But we were looking at getting the Mambos, but they're discontinued. So
yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because we've been using the Mambos for about 2 years now since they first came out. And so you can program those with Tinker as the most basic block coding. And I've used that from everything from, we call it prep over here, but your very first year at school, so the 5-6-year-old children, all the way up through to my undergraduate and postgraduate students at university. Because the idea is that quite a lot of the students that I deal with, like even at the university level, have never touched any kind of programming before. So this is all about getting them to understand the process of problem solving through code. Then you can upskill that. So the drones, both the Tello and the Mambo, you can go all the way through to using Python to code those as well. So if you are looking at a more IT type application for your students, you can really stretch them with a lot more just the written type code as opposed to the block coding. With the programs that we run, the block coding actually works really, really well, and it's great for confidence building, I find, particularly teachers. So we have a lot of teachers that get a little bit, I guess, nervous about the idea of coding, but then to realize, oh, it's actually not that bad. And so you can code with the Tello. You don't actually need the Tello Edu to code. You can code with the basic level of Tello. The difference between the Tello and the Tello Edu is the Edu model allows you access to the SDK, which is a software development kit. Now, for most teachers, certainly at the primary school level, you don't need that Edu level, so you're not going to want to get into the SDK. If you're upper level, so your final 2 years of high school, so you're 16, 17-year-old students working in IT type areas, then it's more likely that they might want to get into the SDK, which is where it allows you to create your own apps to control it and all that sort of thing. So it really is the stretch there. But for most applications, the basic Tello is good for most people as well.
Did you see the question? Mary wants to know if there's a curriculum for second grade. How do you break down your curriculum? And you touched on it a little bit. You're doing all ages, right, Karen?
Yeah. So this was not intentional, I have to say, at the beginning. So when I first created the program, we were targeting girls aged sort of 11 through to 14. And what actually amazed me is that I can use the same curriculum for students, the younger students that you get, and everything that I create, I test on my 7-year-old son and have done since he was 5. So if I'm convinced that he knows how to do it, then it's like the old adage of explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old, and you can get someone at that age to understand it. Then you can stretch it out to above that. So I can quite comfortably do this with 5-6-year-old students, and I can do it with people, teachers my mum's age, whatever it is that you like. The reason being that most people, when they get introduced to this program, and that's the first teacher PD that we have there is the absolute basics, so it's assuming you actually don't have any experience at all. And so the reason you can run it at all ages, because the person coming to you doesn't have any experience. And so it doesn't matter if you're a 5-year-old who's never flown a drone or a 50-year-old who's never flown a drone. You're a person who's never flown a drone. And obviously the way you converse with those people, you speak with different tones and language and words to a degree, but the actual content is the same. The accessibility side can be a little bit different as well. But like I said, this is perfectly fine for for the younger students, and there's also extension areas to push the older or more advanced students as well, which is where I take it to university too.
Erin, we have a question also about getting funding for drones in public schools. You touched on how you've been writing grants.
Yeah. We my director and we first wrote a grant 2 years ago. Well, no, would have been not this past summer. And we got $10,000. That was through, I don't know, I'd have to look it up to see exactly where she found it. She's like a super sleuth at finding grants. And then our city has a grant for educational funding that you feel the resources you need that you can't cover with the budget that the school gives you. So that's the grant I just wrote for the $4,100, $4,200, whichever it was. A lot of it you just have to look for them. Google, again, I can't say enough about it. You just have to know the words to use, and a lot of it is just sticking your head out and your neck out. Like I've done donors choose for iPads that go with the drones that we have too. You kind of have to just pinch pennies where you can, and just really be out there and see what and who can help you.
But I would think that this subject, technology, is a more popular subject for getting.
Oh yeah,
getting money.
Just say drones, and everyone's like, "How high?"
Yeah.
What do you need? And then you go and tell them, and it's like, it's that much. And it's like, well, if you want the program, you have to. I mean, it's not going to come easy. They're not just going to shell out money for 10 drones or 20 drones. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to see what you can get. Even if you can get 5 here and then 5 there, or, I mean, you just have to make it
And I know
work.
every school district is different. It sounds like you had a very supportive administration. I know I'm not sure about the rest of the people out there, how their administrations, and there's small districts and big districts. So I guess you just have to throw it out there, right? I mean, that's
and I will be honest with you. I've been working in my district for 15 years, and this is the first time I ever saw something get done in 20 minutes.
Well, that's...
Yeah, I hit the money on this one, but I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen it. I'm in a very hard school district where more than 50% of our kids are on free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
We're the next biggest city over Boston, and sadly, it's not a good demographic anything. And just the fact that we're trying to keep kids in schools, the second we said drones, the city was like, how can we do it? Because they know where technology is going, and they're trying to find that hook to get kids to be excited.
Andrea wants to know, is there a basic template for getting funding to get started on this road? Maybe Google, right? Template for getting drone funding. No, I don't know, but I guess is grant writing, applying for grants is...
Well, I think they need to first figure out from their district, is there money for new programs? I know when we went from traditional photography to digital photography, the district gave us money to transfer, from darkroom equipment to that kind of stuff. I think they have to just, ask.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. Ask.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't know unless you kind of just say, this is what I want to do. And I think in the long run, your, passion for it might open up an eyes, because sometimes maybe they don't know. Maybe they haven't even thought about incorporating that. So I'd ask. see what you can do. It's
the worst they can say is no, right?
right.
So I think that the tello, just to give people an idea, I know people have said to me, I have no idea how much drones cost. Well, there's a wide variety, but these tellos are about $120 US maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Okay.
Right.
So, and then the other ones that people might see flying around outside, the big name is DJI. Those are more in the thousands to, a couple thousand or 1,500, just to give teachers an idea. So these are more affordable. And that's really what we're talking about when it comes to this teaching in the classroom.
And I think I would want to say too, if you can try them, go sign up for a course and see what you can try and what you can use, because a drone is a drone. They have the same capabilities from small to large. So even if you can just afford some of the small ones, get your foot in the door with the kids and get them hooked on it. And then even have parents write letters if you had to. I mean, have them, have the kids be vocal. That was one thing that we have done since I started just my pilot class with them. My girls have gone to school board meetings. They're now going to the Department of Ed meetings to say how much they are learning with a lot of this. I mean, the hard part is I'm the first district in New Hampshire to open up and say, I'm going to start a curriculum. I mean, I don't have curriculum to be able to, work with somebody else to find. There's not a lot of curriculum resources in the US that aren't astronomically expensive. So a lot of it is you have to just get out there and try and practice and, gain confidence yourself with drones, but you have to, get out and just do it. And the kids are going to do it too.
Are you flying with controllers, or are you using tablets or?
For the ones that the girls are using now,
yes.
We have remote controlled little mini drones is what they're called. They were like $30 each on Amazon. Because we started with the Sparks, DJI Sparks.
Mm-hmm.
I had 5 of them. The first week, 3 of them hit the floor and I had a heart attack.
And those
I was calibrating IMUs, which I never knew what the heck that meant. I was calibrating compasses. I never knew what that was. And then I was sending them back to DJI because that was like $300 I just threw out the window. But yes, they do have, how I have them do it is a 3. They work in triplicate with each other. There's the pilot. The co-pilot is using the iPad to take pictures. And then I have the visual observer.
Okay. And those are all positions that they need to know for safe flying, and
right.
All part of what you're teaching them about drones. Okay. So we're about, 40 minutes here. Karen, do you want to jump in now and explain a little bit more about the SheMaps?
So I might build on a little bit what Erin just said, talking about having 3 people, and this is something that I strongly advocate for as well. Basically what I do with my students, and again, whatever age student you want to work with, it doesn't matter. I try and mimic what it is that we would do in the real life situation. And so the online teacher PD that we have available at the moment is really based around a day in the life of a geospatial scientist or me. And the concept is that there's a natural disaster somewhere out near you and you're the first on the scene and you need to use your drone to go out, fly the area, take pictures, etc. And the whole idea for me is I don't want to fly drones, and I don't want to teach students to fly drones just for the sake of it. I want to have a reason why they want to do it. For me, it's you going out there to take photos, to map, or it might be because you're artistic and you're taking photos or video to create a story. Or you, another example I gave in our last webinar was talking about delivering supplies to the International Space Station. So there's a real story behind exactly what it is that you do. And I always have the students working in teams of 3. I do sometimes have teams of 2 if I've got really, really small groups. But teams of 3 works well because that's also mimicking what we do in a safe environment, working with the bigger real drones outdoors. So you've got your pilot in charge. They're the one who's responsible for safely operating the craft. The co-pilot is the one who's really looking at the tablet. So I fly the drones with tablets because that allows the students to look at battery levels, which is really, really important. So we don't want drones falling out of the sky because the battery died. And the pilot doesn't do that because they're looking at the drone. So the co-pilot is the one that's monitoring that battery level. And they can also see any footage that the drone is capturing as well. And then my third role is what I call the chief reporter. So this is the person that in the older grades, if they're allowed to be on social media or they're allowed to have their phones with them, then they take pictures and they can create stories around what their team of 3 is doing as well. And again, this mimics the way I operate professionally, and I like students to learn the right process. It doesn't matter if you're flying something teeny tiny or you're flying something big. If you set up the right process from the get-go, then I think they're going to behave safely when they eventually graduate, if you like, to some of the larger drones as well. And I can't stress how important it is that you set those right behaviors when you're operating this type of equipment, because like it or not, drones have propellers that are spinning at up to 600 times per second, and they can cut. And there's no way that I want a 6-year-old child playing with a flying razor blade unless we have the right safety precautions put in place. And I don't say that to scare people. I say it just to make you aware that it's just like working in the kitchen with knives or in the woodwork workshop, that you have to respect what it is that you're dealing with. And that's the way I like to set things up as well. Because
I was going to say their lessons, our students are in science laboratories, especially high school students, and have to learn all those safety rules as well, and are dealing with chemicals and things like that. So, we do these things in schools because the purpose is obviously teaching. So,
yeah. So there was
learn
also
the safety, and then they can.
Yeah. So there was a question, sorry, just to jump in there, Wendy. Where did that go? Someone asking about video editing. Where did I just saw it? From Vicky. Do any of you focus on the video editing part of this, the software technique, audio, etc.? So that might be something for you, Erin. Perhaps it sounds like it's in your bag with video editing stuff.
I don't cover much video editing with the kids. We just do a lot of like compositional elements of photos, lines, balance, framing, those kinds of things, because we have a whole video editing class that I have to be very careful with what I cover and then what they cover. If anything, what they're hoping is the class that I'm creating called Drones and Technology, it's going to be a feeder for a lot of the engineering and the video classes. So I have to get from those teachers what aspect they want me to touch on, and then I go into it. I don't do any video. I mean, we use Lightroom, but that would be just for editing purposes, or Photoshop, any of those.
Yeah, those are all good.
Also, I just missed a question also from Mary asking if the telos have a photo option. Yes, they take photos and they take video. Their camera is forward facing only though. So the difference between the telo and the Mambo looks down, the telo looks forward. Having said that, the telo actually does have a camera that looks directly down, but it uses it only for stability. So it's using that camera to see where it is in space, and locate itself, which is because it doesn't use a GPS. So the larger drones use GPS to figure out where they are. The Tello and the Mambo both use this downward facing camera. So you can't take photos with the Tellos looking directly down, but you can take photos and videos looking out. I think it's a 5 megapixel camera, and it's actually really quite good. I would personally don't fly those teeny tiny ones outside. A little gust of wind and they're going to go off.
Go off in a tree somewhere.
Yeah.
Nope, I would not fly it outside.
And also the other thing is, if I've got a bunch of students, I want them in a contained area, because if I'll often work with 30 students at once, 10 drones in the air, and if I had them all out on a football field, I'd never get them back. Whereas if I'm in an enclosed gymnasium, the furthest they can go is to hit the wall. So I keep control of things like that.
Right. Yeah.
What else have we got? It's in a so someone's mentioned the app.
And these Tellos are pretty durable. They're pretty durable. They can be.
I know they're crazy, right? Like when I initially started flying with the Mambos and now with the Tellos as well, I thought I'd need to be replacing drones every week or after every group of students. I thought it was going to be a really expensive thing, but I've had some of these drones that have had over 200 flights with various different groups of students that come and go as well. So they're not students that necessarily think, this is my drone, I'm going to take care of it. They're ones that they'll smash it into the wall, and they're amazing. They really are.
We have a question. Yeah, how do you get FEMA certified? I guess you were mentioning FEMA, right, Erin?
Yes. So I am getting FEMA/OEM certified, so I'd become an operational for emergency management. The way that
Are you still there, Wendy? I seem to have lost Erin.
Yes, I'm still here, and I hear you.
Okay.
And Erin. All right. Sorry. So I don't know how much everyone else lost. I guess you all can see.
Looks like someone else has lost Erin as well. All right. Well, hopefully she'll pop back on. We'll go to this.
Frozen time.
Okay, people can see at least the two of us. So perhaps you go to this one that says, what drone would you recommend for outdoor flying then for students? So this is a really good question, and it's something that people ask me all the time, whether it's outdoor flying for students or for the council or for whatever thing, and people come and say, oh, what drone do I buy? My question back to you is, what do you want to use it for? Because it really depends on what your application is as to which drone you should buy. It's the same thing. Go and buy a car. Oh, which car should I buy? Well, what's your budget? What are you going to do with it? Are you driving long distances? Are you driving short distance? How many kids do you have? How many people do you need to fit in? Do you need to tow something? All those sorts of questions that you would consider before you buy a car. Exactly the same for a drone. So I do actually have a little table that sort of has the pros and cons of different drones for mapping purposes. That's within our PD as well. For just really, really basic learn to fly. Again, it goes down to buy the smallest drone that you can get away for your learning objective. So that might be, if you're indoors, the Tello or the Mambo, if you can still find them, though being disconnected, that's challenging. Then outdoors, if you just want something really, really small and you got a low budget, then the next step up then is the Spark. So the Spark is slightly larger. It's got a great camera. It's controlled by GPS, a nice, safe one to use. No good for mapping because it doesn't talk to any of the mapping applications. And that's just to do with the GPS inside it for some reason that presumably DJI have blocked that. If you want to get into mapping, your best options are the higher end Mavics now. It was the Phantoms. The Phantom has been discontinued. So again, it really depends what your budget is and what it is that you want to do. Are you happy snaps? Are you drone deliveries? Are you just getting kids out and flying? What it is and how much you've got to spend. So sorry, that's not really a very good answer, but
because there isn't, as you said, there isn't an easy answer.
Yeah. Am I familiar with other brands other than DJI? Absolutely. So I've actually only just moved over to the DJI brand, and the reason being is that they really just have the market share. And so part of the reason that I have moved both my research and my teaching over to DJI is that because they have the market share, then all the development is going into that space. So very few other brands have decent apps that will allow you to map with them. So there used to be some open source stuff, but those brands have now just been completely wiped off the market. And so all the development is going that way. And I'd really like to not have it as a monopoly. But in all honesty, yes, you can buy other brands. But if you might see a bit of a saving on a particular brand, I really find that you're hard pressed to get a better product than what's out there with DJI. I'm really happy to be proven wrong with that as well, because I like variety. But it's a tough one. They have the market share for a reason, and they are very, very good products. So
and good customer service.
Yes.
Which is kind of key for somebody like me who, I ask a lot of questions. Why isn't it doing this? And I get answers. I can get information. Somebody's asking about this drone is the Tello, and it's spelled TELLO. And it's Tello edu, Tello edu, education, I assume is what it stands for. Somebody was asking about that. And
so sorry you guys lost me.
Yes.
New Hampshire has total wind advisories, and trees are like dropping left and right around us.
Oh.
So I got a text, a tree dropped right across the street. So I was like, wrong timing. So to answer the FEMA, you can take different courses through FEMA. I did it through our emergency management system department in our city. He put together a program. A lot of it is just, getting out there and trying to find the resources to get that certification.
I guess talk a little bit about Part 107. So again, I don't know how many people how many of you teachers know nothing and are starting with zero knowledge, and I can see that some of you know a lot about it. But Part 107 is the FAA's the test that you have to take in order to become a certified remote pilot. Meeting the FAA.
Yay, good job, Mary. You passed. That's awesome.
So it's just about 2 years old. They started offering it 2 years ago. I just you have to recertify every 2 years, and I just passed my recertification. Yay. But 60 questions, and it's about, it's principles of aviation, aeronautics, how to read sectional maps that airline pilots have to know how to do, manned aircraft pilots. So it's definitely was out of my knowledge base, way out of it. And I studied about 25 hours total in order to pass that. And this is what you need. You need to have your Part 107 certification in order to fly a drone for commercial purposes in the United States. And teachers fall under that for the most part. Erin, jump in here.
You want your fishing net?
Yeah, and I don't want to scare anyone, but some people are asking about it, and
I know.
It's the down the line is, if any of you teachers, you might want to consider it for down the line, not starting it.
We can't sugarcoat it either. I'm the type of person, like, I'm scuba certified because I scuba dive. Like if I'm going to put my name on something, I want to always make sure I'm doing it right. Especially with me teaching high schoolers how to use drones, I want to make sure I'm giving them every opportunity to know the rules, because I know there's going to be that one kid that, like some lady the other day in the internet, just putting her drone up to 3,600 feet because she thinks it's cool and she wanted to see if she could do it. Like, I know my clientele, I need to teach them the rules and regulations. I studied many hours. I'm not a very quick learner. I'm a very visual learner. So I took online tests, I took books, I took everything. I mean, I probably studied for 2 hours a day for maybe 2 months, because I didn't know what to expect, because you can get online courses and they'll say, well, this is a fraction of what you could get. So I had to take it like that. I took it many times just to see what, the possibilities would be. I have test anxiety. I mean, I got in there and, if I don't know the first answer, I'm done. And that's just me. Yeah, it was hard. It was awesome. I totally celebrated when I passed. But again, I think, you have to take a test to become a teacher, some states. So I think it is what it is, I guess.
It is what it is. So a couple people were asking also what's the study materials. There's a lot of them out there. I'm not being paid by, I used Remote Pilot 101. There is Gold Seal. I saw somebody, Gold Seal is another online curriculum study course. There's some really good ones out there. Somebody mentioned the Drone Girl. Yes, so we're putting all this, I think all of this information, and I'm sorry I can't confirm it, but it's all in the notes that everyone can see. I think the chat portion of it, where people are putting lots of good information in there. But the Drone Girl she has a blog, and she has a study guide. They're out there. Again, Google.
Right. You just have to take the time to do it. I mean,
yeah. And YouTube.
Can we just also clarify, Wendy and Erin, for teachers out there that are looking at this, right? So if they're flying those micro drones indoors, they do not need to worry about the Part 107. Am I correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
For the 107, you have to register anything over 0.55 pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's just the FAA regulations. The other thing you have to really kind of know is, technically, having your 107 is for a commercial pilot, but it's because you're being paid to use the drone for purposes. So that's where teaching, if you go on the FAA site, if you're getting paid to teach, then technically you're getting paid for your compensation. It's your job, basically. So that's where I think you have to ethically ask yourself, do I want it to be covered, or am I okay with just kind of not having it?
And also, just to note that registering your drone, if it weighs more than ½ pound, is only $5, right?
Correct.
And what is it? It takes you to do your Part 107. It costs you 150.
150.
Yeah. So financially, that's probably less of a barrier. But like you said, it's a challenging thing to do. So I mean, that's nice in the States. So for example, in Australia, it costs you about $4,000 to do a course that will allow you to get your license. So it is much, much cheaper in the US. And it's a
Yes.
week-long
Yeah.
face-to-face course for us. So it's quite different.
I think I did a weekend and it was like $1,500. I didn't pay it, the school did. It was $1,500 for the weekend, but that was like crash course, 8 hours a day. This is what you're getting. Here's your study guide. Here's everything. Here's the online database. Go.
Yeah.
Right. Which brings us to SheMaps in terms of that doesn't include the part 107. What we're talking about, all of that does not, but everything else is included in the SheMaps in terms of bringing the drones into your classroom.
Yeah. Our online introductory course, which we call Drone Essentials, is really about flying micro drones indoors, but understanding all of the FAA requirements so that you feel confident that, you know, if this goes well in your classroom and you do want to step up to getting your Part 107 and flying something outdoors and all that sort of thing, that you've got some of that basic knowledge. So we're not teaching something that's different or contradictory. It's all in there, and all the safety stuff is the same. It's just you actually don't need to be certified to do it. So it's a lot more focused on the application itself and really just getting you started there. That's where this course sits in. It doesn't give you a qualification. It's providing you with the tools to be able to do this within the classroom for yourself.
Okay, and again, I see lots of great information people are putting in the chat comments about a free site for learning the information, sarahnielsen.org. Thank you for that. And a terrific book, Remote Pilot Test Prep.
Yeah, I use that one too.
See, so these are teachers who've done it, so you're out there, and that's wonderful. We got to share all this information with each other. Ladies, anything else? I think we're about up on our time.
Yeah, so it's just gone 11 a.m. for me, so obviously different times for everywhere else in the world, but I think it probably is time to wrap up. Wendy, shall I just do a screen share on that webpage, Wendy?
Yes, please do. For how people can learn more about SheMaps.
So hopefully you can see my screen now. Is that right? Can you see my screen, Wendy and Erin?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the website that we've got here with Women and Drones, and this will take you directly if you are interested in joining our online PD. So if you just go through the womenanddrones.com URL there, you can find us. And so for more information about it, you can click directly to enroll, or for more information, you can read all the way through. And there's lesson plans associated with it. We do 3 online live Ask the Expert chats with me or someone else in the States as well, to help you through that as well. And it's really designed to start to build that community within US teachers, and we've run it really successfully for the past couple of terms here in Australia, and we have had some US and UK people join us along on that as well. We really would like to really start to build that a lot more over in the States, because I know that so many people out there are wanting to use it, so we'd really like to help you be able to do that.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Karen, and thank you, Erin. And we'll be interested and have to post updates on how it's going in your school and with your class, because there aren't many students out there right now who are having a whole course on drones. So you're kind of a pioneer in that respect, and your district is as well. So that's great. Best of luck.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And we appreciate you joining us, and stay tuned for more information about SheMaps and Women in Drones and our efforts to share the fun of flying robots with students all over the world. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.